Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of Khel Men. And the men have been without an Olympics live feed for about a week now. So, of course, withdrawal symptoms, hands are shaking, eyes are dilated. But here we are, hanging on, because even though the Olympics is over, our discussion about the Olympics is not over. And so, this is going to be our last Olympics dedicated episode. And I am Tipu Porkayesta, and with me is.
I am Amit Jindal.
And we are going to wrap up our discussions on the Olympics and talk about what worked, the impressions that we carried, and talk a little bit about India, because that's what we do. We are Indian people talking about India. So it's August 21st in the US, where we are. And let's start with the first question. So, Amit, our last episode was 4 or 5 days before the end. And at that point of time, India still had a few things going on. And also, we didn't know who was going to be winning in the sense of most number of medals in the Olympics. So much has happened since then, some exciting athletics, especially, but also some other ones.
Yeah.
Over to you.
So a lot of excitement. Of course, from an India point of view, we ended 1 silver and 5 bronzes. We could not match last time's performance, forget about bettering that. So that was a little sad. And we will not talk about Vinesh Fogart. A lot of things happened, a lot of emotions involved there. But Olympics, till the last day, but think about it. 329 events, so 329 goals. After 328 goals are done, last event decides who wins the medal tally. I don't think so any Olympics could have written that script that well. So 329th gold was women's basketball gold, and it was USA versus France, and USA overwhelming favorite, means not even close. They have won 8 goals in a row, and they barely win by 1 point to tie the gold medal count with China. Because of their silvers and bronzes being high, they now top the medal tally. That was very, very, very exciting. USA did very well. Don't get me wrong. USA, it's not that USA didn't do well to come. USA, they moved from 39 golds and 113 medals to 40 golds and 126 medals, with number of events coming down this year, by the way. So they had more output. The surprise was China. In overall medals, again, they were 89 last time, 91 this time. The thing is, the small moves they made from silver to gold.
Yeah.
So from 38, they moved to 40 to tie with USA. They are in athletics now, man. So all the US and Jamaica, the powerhouses in athletics and track and field, watch out. Chinese army is coming because they are strong in athletics. So that was the biggest takeaway and exciting. Just one thing, because you talked about nostalgia. The day after Olympics, I felt, and every 4 years I feel like that. When I finished my engineering college, the last day of the college ended, and I had all those emotions of 4 years coming the next few days. That was the day after Olympics for me. It was hugely depressing and nostalgic.
Well, but unlike your engineering college, you're going to be going back to the
We are
Olympics.
going to go back again, yes. And next time it's in LA. Next
Yeah,
time it's in California.
exactly.
So hopefully we'll be able to make a trip.
The
Actually,
live
I have to call out something on myself. One of my friends who is an avid listener, Dipali, she pointed out, I said Avinash Sable. She says actually it's called Avinash Sable. It's a Marathi name. So sorry for that. And everybody, please, if you see any mistake, error, point it out. That's good. We will call ourselves out eventually.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I know. I was thinking about it because sable is what we use as the fur coat. That fur
Yes,
thing
yes.
is called a sable. It's a sable coat.
Yeah.
Anyway, um, so one of the things that you said about that photo finish almost at the Olympics reminded me of like a the marathon. I mean, imagine a marathon ending that close. Because at that
Yes,
point, I mean, I think, okay, all right, जिसको जीतना था is already ahead. He's
he's
also
already had. Yeah,
fighting last
absolutely.
moment.
Yeah, fighting last moment.
And the other thing about China, and one of the things I have to say, you see the Chinese athletes, and I think it was the 4 into 100. All right, they're coming fifth, sixth, etc. But the thing is incremental changes. And
Yep.
in our business world, and you and I are both in that, we talk about incremental changes. We talk about that in all the Japanese concepts, etc. All the little changes. How do we get better? India, unfortunately, seems to have slipped various reasons. I see, and I'm very impressed. You also said how they're converting their silvers to gold, the bronzes to silver. That is something else. And to me, it's a little bit like how, once upon a time, we always thought China was good at, A, B, and C. In economics, we have this theory of competitive advantage. Certain countries have competitive advantage in certain things, and trade economics is all about that. And hence, they export those. And whatever they don't have competitive advantage in, they import it. Because it's much easier to import than to build it on your own. China seems to be, and for various reasons, I think some of it is geopolitical. They've been kind of shunned, put in one corner. They are developing everything. They are just in an industry. They're doing semiconductor chips, cell phones, advanced electronics, electric vehicles, etc. Also, in sports that we did not count China, and traditionally, like table tennis, they took everything. Diving, they took everything. I mean, that we knew China was like that. They're the superpower. But in the other things that they have come in, it is excuse me, it is very exciting to see. It's also very scary to see. And unfortunately, this is a thing that we always have in our minds because of this whole controversy over the swimming thing. It's a little bit like what we used to see about the Eastern European countries in the Cold War Olympics. And we had lots of doubts about some of those records just because of the circumstances in which it was happening. The training, we felt that the trainings were cruel and absolutely ruthless. Getting those kids from their homes at a very young age, you'll never have those at that level in many other countries. And then, of course, the performance-enhancing drugs, some proven, some not proven. And
Yep.
unfortunately, in China's case, I think some of that is still there. Obviously, you and I don't know enough to even say that's what it is, but generally there is a little bit of the lingering suspicion. I think it was an Australian coach, right? The swimming coach who kind of mentioned something about that. And obviously many other athletes have come out on similar things. And one last thing, Amit, one of the things I heard somebody mention, an expert mention, was that because Russia wasn't there in the way that Russia normally is, it actually helped China's case. Well, probably also helped US's case, but maybe China a little bit more than the US in terms of upping its tally. What did you feel about
Well,
that?
absolutely, yes. So China has been knocking the top three, except the Beijing Olympics, where they were number one because they had the bump of the host. They have been knocking top two couple of times, maybe number three after China, two Olympics back. So they have been knocking at this forever. Now, Russia not being there definitely helped US and China a lot, and some other countries too. Uh, and I don't see the way Russian Olympic Committee has sort of disintegrated, even if they are completely back into Olympics for whatever reasons. It will take them few Olympics to come back to that level of prowess. So it is USA versus China. And funny you mentioned Cold War. In Cold War, the biggest thing to watch was USA versus USSR in the Olympics. I think USA versus China, as we continue in Olympics, and if we continue in Olympics, will be the matchup to watch and fascinate the sports world.
Yeah, and obviously a lot of nationalistic feelings in in the press and different presses. And the other thing which I also felt a little bit with the USSR thing or the Russia thing now is it's not just that they are not representing in the absence of a Russian Olympic Committee. What happens is you do not get the infrastructure support. You're an athlete, you're a good athlete, you'll win. You're Mondo, you're going to win. Doesn't matter where you are. But the other ones for the team sports, those camps, that is something which you and I cannot form a WhatsApp group and do that, right? I mean,
Yep.
assuming you and I are athletes, obviously we are not. But it's not something that individual players they cannot do this on their own. That's where you need the system. In the absence of a system, obviously the chances reduce. Anyway, you mentioned host country advantage, so I want to move on to our next topic. Um, now that the Olympics is over and a little bit of our the adrenaline rush that we are facing has now calmed down, what do you just think about the Olympics in terms of the real benefits? Everybody talks about, is it like it's like a party? You go to somebody's birthday party, it was a lot of fun, but was it really? I mean, was the expenses worth it? Or like an Indian wedding? Is that you like shadi to karwali, but a wedding is an expensive affair.
Yeah. Okay, so the Olympics is a little different than the Indian wedding. Okay, so Paris tried to do something to stem the tide, which has been going uncontrolled for last 6, 7 Olympics, which is the cost going up. So Paris did that beautifully. The real report will still come out, but the initial reports, the draft reports are very favorable that they kept the total expense less than $10 billion, which is a huge thing going forward. So they did a lot of good things, but it should change one thing as we go forward. But there are multiple things to sustain Olympics, and it's a huge party, yes, but it has to be economically sustainable, and it has to be sustainable for future generations to come. Because till now, one city gets the host thing. They were like 32 to 36 sports now. Sometimes you see in LA when they add squash and flag football and cricket and baseball and softball, so many sports are getting added. How you create that many Olympic world level facilities in one city? How many you can reuse? How many Olympic villages can you build? For 10,500 is the limit, and after they add last minute, it always turns out to be between 10,500 to 11,000 athletes, because that's the limits. They've fixed the limits on that in an Olympic village with security and all, and then they what you call draw it down. Half of the Olympic village in Paris is temporary. They have already, they will not, they will draw it down after the Paralympics will be over. Paralympics are starting next Wednesday today, by the way. So that will be, so what is the future model? So I wrote down 4 things which we should change the way Olympics are being done. One, move from a city to a country Olympics. Means still France gets it, and in rather than LA, USA gets it. What happens is now the 30 sports can be spread over 5 or 6 cities. Okay. So means you have 32, 35 stadiums in 5 or 6 cities, means each city gets 5 or 6 or 4. That that can be reused easy. Number one, because you can't have one city's whatever the population size may be using that much infrastructure for future. That's number one. And same about Olympic villages. You don't need to create that infrastructure. It is easy in Winter Olympics where size is small. Look at the Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City, which USA got for 2034, correct? University, it's happening during the time when they will let the University of Utah go on vacation, and they're using all the dorms of University of Utah as the Olympic village. But it's size enough that they can use it, and it's controlled enough from security and other things. So they have to, that's small. This is big, more events. So they have to go beyond that. That is number one. So multi-city approach. I think it will go. One for Paris Olympics, only one event happened outside Paris. You know that.
Surfing.
The surfing in Tahiti, 10,000 miles away. Not even 1,000 miles or 500 miles.
Santa Monica, so you're not going to worry about that.
Yeah, so we don't have to worry about that, but the other events can be. Yeah.
I know.
Second is getting how you make it relevant for the younger generation. If you see the NBC's viewership numbers, I'm only looking at US. I have yet to see the world viewership numbers. Outside of gymnastics and swimming and athletics, which are generally liked by everybody, very little interest in sports outside that. Okay. How to keep them interested? Because You want the viewership that drives the revenue at the end of the day.
Basketball, I would imagine. That must have
Basketball, yeah, basketball.
another reason.
Okay, I'm not saying basketball because it's not a traditional Olympic sport. Basketball and to some extent the under 23 version of soccer still
Yeah.
existed in Africa. Africa number one viewership was the soccer. Can you believe it? For the Olympics, despite all the other sports, because they were crazy about that. So that interest, how do you keep them? How do you bring it together? There was a proposal for electronic games into that, esports.
Yeah.
There is Olympics happening separately. The IOC has still not tried to bring it together. I think the CTS, LTS, 40S, none of those three principles apply to esports. So we'll see how it goes.
You could. My son is really into video games, and I mean, yes, some of it is, but
If someone is faster, yeah, you can talk about the faster part.
yeah,
Absolutely. So they are figuring it out how to bring that. I think that isn't there now. There's a debate going on. There was a debate on wrestling. The modern wrestling lost its touch 10 years back with the people. So there was a revolt and they changed the rules. Now because of India's interest, we saw so much wrestling. But how fun it is to watch it now. It's very, very engaging. So they have made it engaging. So wrestling is a permanent sport now. Same problem is happening in boxing. Not least because of the IBA versus IOC fight going on, but also the fact that boxing is becoming less interesting for as a viewer sport. So there will be a demand on that. So they have to fix that. Uh, the third thing which I think you still look at in an Olympic cycle, when I talk about Olympic cycle, means one winter and one sports. One winter and one summer. NBC still is around $3 billion for one cycle. Maybe 3.5. Going forward, it's only increasing. We are talking about 10 billion for Summer Olympics and say another 6 to 7 billion for Winter Olympics, 16 to 17 billion for one cycle of Olympics to host, and NBC contributing 15-20% of that. So USA, the biggest population center is China and India. The viewership has gone up like crazy now. China has always been India. If I read the reports and interest level, that has not translated into broadcasting revenues yet.
unlike cricket.
That unlike cricket. So India is very interested, but it's not there. So that's and the fourth, we will not talk about much. How can we have politics not play a role in sports? You take away politics. I don't want to take sides in the wars, but you start taking sides and say one country should not be allowed into a sport because they were the aggressor. You are getting into the wrong side of the discussion. Leave sports alone. The only thing any country should be banned is if they have a systematic doping and drugs to impact the sports side, not the political side. So if they do that, I think Olympics is a sustainable thing. At least we may be in the aftermath of the euphoria of Olympics and saying that because 17 days were the craziest 17 days. So it should continue if the powers that be make an effort, and they are. I will not say they are not making the effort, and there are so many pulls and pushes all over the place. Pretty sure they are having their own challenges.
So, I keep thinking of these global sporting events, World Cup, soccer World Cup, football World Cup, our own Asian Games in India or in Asia, um, and of course this, and then Commonwealth Games and all of this. Obviously, it's a huge investment.
Yeah.
Obviously, returns are very hard to quantify. Many cases it has shown up as it did not give the kind of returns that it said it would. I always think of it like, in the US, uniquely, you have these sports stadiums, which the government, the state government or the city government subsidizes hugely because they feel it'll bring revenues in many other ways.
Yeah.
And I I'm very much opposed to it because I just think that these should be privately funded. But that doesn't matter. The government feels that it will have some kind of an overall economic benefit. But like any economic benefit, these are hard to quantify. These are not direct economic benefit in the sense that you're paying for tickets and you buy 10 tickets and you get whatever 10% as city taxes and the city gets that revenue. Sometimes it becomes much a different way. So that's why it's very hard to measure these benefits. My thing with some of the things that you said, spreading it over multiple cities. One of the things that, stories that you hear about how the players are bonding because they are in the same Olympic village, in the sense of players in different sports or different countries. And that's something which I think being in one village helps you. I liked a lot of the things that Paris did. It itself is such a beautiful city that, and the way they worked on the temporary things, it was very good, very sustainable. ESG is such a big thing for corporations today. If I have to just go by this, they build sustainable things. That's really great. The viewership part of it, and yes, there'll be some games which will be get more eyeballs, but also you see that how people get intrigued about certain sports that they did not know about as much.
Yeah.
Whether it's canoeing or whether it is pentathlon or things which is like, oh, this is pretty cool. And America, in many ways, and if you look at some of the ways, say pickleball has become popular in America, or Jai this paddle game
I
also,
know. Yeah.
and squash is going to be, you mentioned all the games which will be there next at LA. And if I take just America, there's a curiosity about some of these sports. Maybe it's not something that they're going to be watching like years on end. It's not going to replace your NBA and NFL and NHL, etc. Or MLB, but it is something I feel the American audience, and obviously we are talking very strictly from an American point of view, being in this country and maybe a little bit of India also. There's a curiosity to this. It does need television revenue to survive, which gets into the timings of the things. People like to watch it live. That is going to become a problem.
Yeah.
Then, the moment you start having it in Asia, your American audience is going to have a problem with the time zones. Obviously, LA, you don't have that problem here. And America is still the largest audience for this, I think, in terms of revenues and everything. Not largest in terms of numbers, but largest in terms of the or whatever advertising metric that you use. I hope that the thing which is getting controversial now, like what you said, is which team gets in and which countries are banned and which countries are not banned. Unfortunately, that has been happening for some time now. I don't know if there's a good way of resolving that. I think that gets into geopolitics. And I think you also mentioned that Olympics should not be geopolitics should be a separate thing from Olympics. Unfortunately, with geopolitics, the IOC's leadership has to have awareness of what the geopolitics is, because it'll have its own. You're doing the Olympics in a country. That country you need to have people coming into that country. That country will have a big base. And which is why, China has done it and Sochi, Russia has done it. World Cup, Russia has done. Just they feel that it gives you some kind of a image. And then that's what they call, that's your definition of sports washing, obviously. Sports washing, not watching. Watching is what we do. So that's the definition of sports washing. I think that thing is not going to get any easier, and which is why the economic value will be harder to quantify, just because those countries will make sure that if their supreme leaders, whoever it is, looks good, and it kind of becomes this little bit of a puja of like, oh my God, we are so good, we did all these great Olympics. The um, uh, uh, the coming to the future Olympics, obviously India is one of the countries which is thrown its hat in the ring for 2036. It's Ahmedabad, and I can see pros and cons of Ahmedabad. Ahmedabad, they did organize the Cricket World Cup. Unfortunately, let's not talk about the results of that one. But they did organize the Cricket World Cup. Obviously, there's a lot of infrastructure. There's a lot. I'm not just talking about sports. In the state of Gujarat, there's a lot of industrial activity which is going on. The weather, the climate sucks. It sucked in Tokyo. It sucked a little bit in Paris, though I think it rained a lot more in Paris. So in a way, that probably kept things a little bit cooler. Plus, you have a river going through it. I don't think the Sabarmati is that much of that big a river like the Seine is. You may not get quite that impact of the Sabarmati in the Ahmedabad games if it ever happens. But also, and I'm not here to talk about the pros and cons of Ahmedabad as a venue. It's not even, it's not something which has been decided. But I know that one of the things that always comes up is in the poorer countries, and I'm not talking about India per se, but let's talk of less developed countries, as we used to call it. Um, should we be spending money on Olympics versus feed the people or any other social infrastructural, any other thing? So that also comes up. There's no answer to that. It's a little bit like the moon mission. Why do you want to send people to the moon and they are not even able to get 3 square meals or 2 square meals a day? There are many answers to that. Let's not get into that, but it is a question that will come up. It came up during CWG. It came up in 82 Asiad Games. And 82 Asiad Games, now that we have the time, and we were about 10, 11 years old, and I remember it very vividly because I really got into it, and I'm assuming so did you. And that double kick of the 82 Asian Games and the 83 Cricket World Cup win, I think made a lot of changes in the mindset of people. The fact that you could go to Delhi and see these things, even now, sorry, one last thing, even now, my wife and her family, they live in Golf Links. So right next to it is the Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium. And as I drive by, I see that. And it's a metro station. JLN Stadium is a metro station. And if there is a thing, it is there. And it tells people that, hey, we had all this.
And you are right. I was there at the 82 Asiad. I watched few events there. Every event is a vivid memory in my head. Look, I believe, and we will not get into debate, I believe it helps the countries. Specifically, now we know 40 years later that what impact Asian Games did. CWG, the Commonwealth, I don't know. We will know in 10 years from now. The good thing about Ahmedabad, not about the city, it's not the New Delhi or Bombay. The reason being, I always believe, and that's why I didn't like Tokyo and Paris per se. I always believe if you are doing that much development, do multi-cities, and rather than the main city alone, which is Ahmedabad in this, develop 3, 4 adjoining cities. You don't want to go 1,000 miles away, but between Ahmedabad, Bombay, and Ahmedabad, Nasik, Nagpur, there are enough cities to develop. So Cricket World Cup is different. You have to build one stadium. Okay, it's very easy. There also the infrastructure for the hotels came under a lot of pressure. I know of people who booked, you know that booking the night in a nursing home and staying the night. So those things cannot sustain in an Olympic scenario. So build multiple infrastructure. 5 cities will develop. The whole region comes up. There is no doubt in my. Remember, 83 World Cup win was also followed by 87 World Cup hosting.
Yes.
And we know how impact it had on the Indian psyche, sports, sponsorship. It was a Reliance World Cup, first time an Indian company sponsoring something that big, and another Reliance with the name is so synonymous with Gujarat and Ahmedabad and Surat and all those places. So I believe it's always good. And 36 Olympics India has bid for. And as a host country, I think we talked about it. Host country gets to suggest 5 sports now, which IOC will vote on. And India has suggested Kho, yoga, chess among all those sports. So this was a little weird and seeing some of those sports. I think kabaddi is also there. Kabaddi, I think, will get voted in. Chess, I don't know. There will always be a debate on it's a real sport or not, and it has been on the list. Kho, I don't know. No other country plays it. Yoga is more a spiritual exercise rather than a competition, and it should not be a competition. Sorry. Yeah.
Or a fitness exercise.
Yeah, fitness exercise. So, but I very clearly see kabaddi going in. We have proved that in the Asian level, and India losing the gold last to last Olympics proved there are other countries who can be competitive in that sport. So, but we all, as an Indian fan, want Olympics in India, Ahmedabad and surrounding cities, wherever it is. I think we will do a good job out of it. Politics and corruption will always be part of it. We just have to control it.
But to be honest, more than the politics or the corruption or the bad infrastructure, whatever else comes out of it. Look, I mean, you remember how in the Paris Olympics people say, "Oh, the river is so dirty. Oh, this." Everybody's waiting to pounce on you and say, "Oh, yeah, come, that is bad." And
yeah,
I So other than that, of course, I mean, my biggest worry is that India will not get enough medals. It'll just look really pathetic. So,
Uh,
which seems like a good segue to India's chances, India's performance. I mean, you talked about it in the beginning, but just as we wrap it up, maybe something in
Last
terms of
thing. So,
what.
yeah, it's a twofold problem, according to me. So, number one, we had 110 people this time. Let's focus this time. As per my calculation, around 40 of them, 42, 43 of them can compete at the Olympics level. Okay, most of the shooters, archers, few boxers, few wrestlers, the hockey team, a few badminton players. You have Neeraj Chopra, you have Mirabai Chanu. So you add all these things, and I'm probably missing a couple of them here and there. You will get around 40 odd people who can compete. Another problem, so the one problem is if 40 people can compete, why 6 medals? And that too, no golds. That's problem number one. Number two is when teams like countries like USA, even France and Germany and China send 600 people, 200 of them can compete. So, so the two set problem is how do we reach 200 competitors in our team? That is a bigger problem. Infrastructure, motivation, mindset. We can't put it on the government all the time. I think a lot of work is being done over last 20, 30 years. We have seen the change since 90s to now. They can do more. Yes, government can always do more and they should do more, but it's a psyche of the parents to help the kids in the not the small towns. Most of the stories of people doing good in the Olympics in India coming from poor families. Why not poor coming from middle class and upper middle class families? Because we tell them to study. We say sports, पढ़ोगे लिखोगे तो होगे आबाद, खेलोगे कूदोगे तो होगे बर्बाद. Correct? That thing still applies, and it applies to my parents. Forget about anybody else. So that is number one. Number two is the 40 resulting in 6 medals. Multiple things. They all do so well in the World Cup's individual sports. You know why? There's no focus on them. The moment the whole country focuses on them, they somehow fall apart. So, do we need a psychologist or somebody who works with them? It's like we have seen enough cases in NBA. The guys who are a free throw shooter in practice, they are 98, 99% free throw shooter, but in the NBA game, they come down to 70%. The pressure. So I'm pretty sure we are thinking about it. I will not, again, nutritionists are part of it. We did flub one of the wrestling thing, nutrition. That's not a big worry because that was one-off case. I will not make a strategy based on one-off case, but psychologists and people who can help us with the stress part of it, think differently, are a must in modern day. Our cricket team has it. If our cricket team has it, I'm pretty sure other sports need it too. So there are two-part problem. One needs complete change in thinking, and it will result in a generation from now. Other one, I think we can do it very quickly because the same thing will happen. Next Olympics, plus minus hockey team, because if women's hockey team qualifies, will hit 125, 130, even 140. If it does not qualify, we will hit 110 to 120 athletes because I can see who can qualify and who cannot qualify 4 years from now. And we will have the same problems. But we can solve this. This is a short-term problem. We can do it.
And you mentioned cricket. I mean, obviously, cricket has the advantage of being a very rich controlling board. Do you think funding is a problem?
Funding at all levels is a problem. The reward money is not a problem. So between the state board and the sports federation and the sponsorships, and if you win a medal, the rewards are there and they should be there. Please, nobody should begrudge, oh, that guy got 3 crores or 4 crores just for winning a bronze medal. No, they need it. The thing is reaching that place.
Yeah.
In cricket, the money is there almost every level. Even in Ranji, which is the step brother or stepson of cricket, A typical Ranji player can easily earn 25 to 50 lakh rupees in a year. Not great as compared to an IPL star or anybody else,
The
but they
Ranji
can.
players have IPL opportunities.
Yes. So
Today.
how many? We have 29 or 30 Ranji teams,
Yeah.
15 roster, 400, 500 cricket stars can earn that much, and some of them can earn. We don't have in other sports that much. Yes. So funding is a problem at before we reach the international level. After that, it's good.
Yeah. And obviously you and I live in a country where there's no government intervention or involvement in the sports. They don't, it's the colleges, the universities. It is obviously they have the sponsors. Sometimes they do GoFundMe's. Uh, and the struggle of everybody. But then you feel that you have opportunities again in NFL, NHL, all the leagues. You can make a living in sports in this country. You cannot make a living in sports in India. And
Yes.
there is, and ultimately that's what it comes down to. And a lot of people are in sports in India is because it gives them a job. It gives them a railways job, or it gives them something, some kind of a central government job, maybe even a private sector job. But mostly that's what it is. And there's this great, and I'll end with this great Anurag Kashyap movie, Mukkabaz, and it's about this boxer. Obviously, from the name, it's a boxing guy, and he's trying to make it into the team. He really likes to box, and it talks of the circumstances that he grows up in. It's in North India, he's in UP, and so all the caste politics, and then how who gets selected, who doesn't, who you have to go and give a salam toko to. You have to, all of these things. Obviously, in India, it's a mix of different things. It's a mix of different things in every country. I'm sure they have. And like we were talking about in China, you hear all these stories that kids out at the age of 10, 9, 10, and just put them in a camp and they don't see their parents anymore. It sounds horrific. Or in the US, you are you are surrounded by the best of the best. Here's Bowman's thing about the swimmers. You go to Arizona, you go to Stanford, you are in Gainesville in Florida. Those kind of universities which have so much of infrastructure, so much of money on sports, and they can do that. Obviously, we need to have a model for that, and let's see. I mean, we probably have a similar conversation 4 years later in LA, but. Fingers crossed, and let's hope for the best. And before we end this episode, so next time we're going to now move out of the Olympics, get a little bit wider range, a wider aperture. A lot of things going on. There's stuff going on in cricket that we have been trying to talk about, and of course in some of the tennis and other sports. Amit, any last things before we sign off?
No, absolutely. Just to all the listeners, if you have a topic in mind, please suggest to us, write to us, listen to us. That's the only way we can grow and become better. Olympics is near and dear to all our hearts. We are saying bye to it for some time now, but we will talk about other sports as we go forward.
Yeah, and you can leave a comment on the channel or just reach out. Unfortunately, I do not have any social media presence. I don't know, Amit, if you do. But
Now, we don't, but we need to have it. We have to start doing it.
yeah. But yes, please go forward and put something in the comments on the YouTube videos. Thank you. Amit, good to see you. And I see that you have your Rakhi on, so happy Rakhi.
Yes.
And happy Rakhi to all our viewers too. See you. Bye.